Okay.
Earlier in your sermon, Caleb said, is it okay if somebody asks us how we're doing? We're supposed to say good.
Yes, so the question is it okay to, if someone asks how we're doing, is it okay to say that we're doing good? And I think this has to do with the question of there's none good but God. I think. I think that's probably what that is.
Since we're so simple.
Right. Right, to say that we're, to say we're good. Well, certainly the grace of God, and as we experience the grace of God, that is good. When Christ says to the young ruler, he says there's none good but God, he's talking about his moral condition. Sorry, Caleb. Moral condition, I just know you understand that word, but if I can explain it this way. Our standing before God is one of great guilt. At the same time, he's been very gracious to us. He's given us many good things. And there's nothing wrong with saying, yes, God has given us many good gifts. And in that sense, I am doing well as I receive his good gifts. But any goodness that I have certainly comes from outside. So we can say we're good because Christ has made us good. Does that help, Caleb? I'm sorry I'm not explaining it as well as I'd like to. The difference between a moral condition and of being good or bad, and being a person who has received something good. Speaking of that, there's an interesting passage that deals with sort of this question. It's a little bit different. This passage has to do with Elisha. And it has to do with that question of, if someone asks you how you doing, and you say, fine, is that a lie if you don't feel fine? Is that a lie? And this sort of has to do with what we're talking about a little bit. And what happens is, it's a passage, it's kind of obscure, but Elisha at one point had raised a child from the dead. This child had been the only child of this woman. Her husband apparently had died. And the child then dies again, or becomes extremely sick. And the woman then goes and tries to find Elisha. Elisha sees her at a distance. And Elisha says, I know who that is, and he sends his servant Gehazi, go find out what's up with her. So Gehazi goes up to her and he says, is all well? And she says, all is well. Lie? What she was really saying was, I don't want to talk to you, I want to talk to Elisha. And so she gets to talk to Elisha, and then she tells Elisha what the real deal is. So I take it from that passage that if we say fine, when everything in the world isn't fine, it's never fine, everything in the world, but we're allowed to say that. We're allowed to respond that way. Because Elisha never ever condemns her for the way she responded. How's that for introducing a sort of unrelated topic into the conversation? Yes?
I think I've heard it in this church body, the answer to the how are you doing question, better than I deserve, says it all, because we don't, what do we deserve?
Yep. Well said. Yeah. The point being, yeah, the remark being, or the statement being, how are you doing? And a good answer is better than I deserve. That's true. That's just a very true statement. I knew one young man who used to tell me this, and this man had been through a very difficult life. He gave an answer sort of like that one. This man had lost a child in a criminal act. And he would say, when asked how you're doing, he would say, better than I was, not as good as I'm going to be. Anybody who's experienced grace can say that. Yes.
One thing that I grew up on, it was an unspoken thing in our family that we were kind of, a feeling that we were kind of better than others. You know, we didn't drink, we didn't smoke, it took me a long time, probably through college or maybe after, to realize, no, we're really not. I mean, I think it's easy sometimes to get caught in that. Some people fight against every other thing, and really know better than the people or others. Simply say that.
Yeah, the comment being that perhaps growing up and maybe not doing some of the things that the neighbors did, not getting caught with a DUI on our driving record, not having the children out of wedlock, we're somehow better. And yes, if we act better, we must always recognize God's grace in that. Always. If we don't recognize God's grace in that, we have a pride problem at that moment. Because who are we giving the credit for being better than? You see, we can acknowledge that we act differently from the world, and we should. But the question is, who gets the credit? That's the question. And if Christ, through his mercy, does not get the credit, now we have a real problem. We are the Pharisee thanking God that he's not like other men. That's us. A dangerous spot to be in. A graceless spot to be in, frankly. I'll conclude with this brief anecdote. I might have mentioned it before. I have a brother who got married a little bit later in life. And he and his wife, who also got married a little bit later in life, they wanted to conceive and have children right away. And they had a tough time doing it. Had miscarriages and so forth. It was very difficult on them. And his wife, my brother's wife, asked why. Why would God even have us get pregnant and then take the baby away from us? Why do we even get pregnant at all if we're not going to have a baby? Why would God do this? I thought my brother's answer was very good. He said, I'm going to ask another question. Why wasn't I born in some forgotten place in Africa, drafted into an army when I was like 8 years old, and hacked to pieces when I was 12? Why not? You see, when we begin to ask the why questions, there's no end to them. There's no end. Because if you ask why these bad things happen, why can't we ask why did anything good happen to us at all? That's the question we really need to be asking. And I hope our sermon this morning, based primarily on Ezekiel 16, points out to us, in a way I hope we don't forget, that God has really been good to us, even when these bad things happen. He's still good. He's still good to us.
I was walking the other day, and I was thinking about the neighborhood and how it was not worshiping God and where they were. And the Lord reminded me how I was before I came to Christ. To get back into perspective.
Yeah, the comment being sort of walking through the neighborhood and realizing just how desperately bad things are. And then being reminded that what you were like before Christ, right? In a Christless spot again. Christ just becomes so valuable when we recognize our real true condition. But if we will not recognize that real condition, Christ's value just becomes sort of like, who knows, maybe another guru, another counselor. He's not a savior. He's just another guy with some good advice. Everybody smile. Wow. Thank you again for your kind attention here this morning.